I live in Mexico, and there are so very many starving street dogs and cats. I've been a Christian all my life. I'm 60, but I've never been able to understand why innocent animals have to suffer so much. If God sees them, and I know He does, how can He allow such innocent beings to suffer so much? I know about free will and all that, but animals? I feel this question because one of the things that I really struggled with and still ponder on, honestly, is the problem of evil. Now, I want to give a little different perspective on this. What I want to do is replace every time you use the word animal with children. And I have asked and wrestled with this same exact question, okay? All right, there are so many starving children. I've never been able to understand why innocent children have to suffer so much. If God sees them, and I know He does, how can He allow such innocent beings to suffer so much? I know about free will and all that, but children? Interchangeably used, we still have this problem of suffering, okay? So the way that I read this question is, why does God allow any suffering with animals or people at all? I've always said that this is the kind of stuff that atheists are made out of, all right? So first, I want to point out something very obvious that I didn't really think about when I was in the New Age, but no matter what your beliefs are, everybody has to deal with the problem of evil, of course, even atheists, all right? As a New Ager, I believe in a sort of like a subjective reality where evil was not a part of my manifestation of reality. As crazy as that sounds, it was part of humanity's ego, all right? Either way, it's there. Everyone has to answer this question no matter what they believe in. The question is then, why evil? And then you have to wonder, what is the answer to evil? Now, the Christian view on this is that God didn't create the world evil. He created it good. You said that you know about free will, but honestly, that's nothing to glaze over. There's a lot more to dig into with that. This is the reason why evil exists, and not to mention that there's a spiritual enemy out there wreaking havoc, creating evil and chaos too. Now, my friend Frank Turek, who deals with these questions a lot and has written books about this, he put it this way in one of his books that I thought was pretty eloquently said. He said that if God did away with evil, He'd have to do away with us, with our free will. But the problem is that if He did away with free will, then He'd have to do away with love. Now, this goes a lot deeper, all right? Now, the risk, if you will, that God took was to create a world where real love can exist. This is that world. There was no other world that could be created that love could be real except this one. He had to create a world where people could choose the opposite of love. This means He must allow the decision to choose evil or love for the sake of real love to exist. So free will, while it allows the possibility for evil, is the only way for us to love and achieve ultimate good. This, by the way, is why we're commanded to take care of God's creation and people who are suffering. Many people just by the moral law do this, not just Christians. The other perspective I want to give on this is that this life is not the end, right? We don't really die, we just change location. And if Christianity is true, this is not the end of the story. God is still going to make all things right. Everyone will be judged and will stand before God for everything they've done, and He will righteously judge them. This means that God won't see our sin, He'll see Jesus's perfection. And not only this, He makes all things right, including the suffering of animals. This means that everything that was wrong, He makes right. And this could be a variety of things, right? So think of people who have had a terrible injustice done to them. All right, maybe they're wrongly accused of something, or the killer of someone's family member that got away with it. Think of any atrocity. And all I can say is that Judgment Day is coming, and it will be a perfect judgment. All that is hidden will be made known, and this is a good thing. Jesus said that we will have evil and trouble in this world, but He says to take heart because He has overcome the world. Now, just another perspective on this is that just the fact that you can see that and know it's evil and wrong shows that God exists and wants to make all things right. God wants Eden again. All right, He loves us and He loves His creation. But let me elaborate a little bit more on this because I do think that this is very insightful, okay? Your observation is objective, not subjective. So Augustine of Hippo, he was a really respected philosopher and theologian of his time around the 4th century. And what he was doing was that he was pondering evil, and he came up with this argument. He said his first premise was God created all things. This is true. The second premise is evil is a thing. And therefore his conclusion was, therefore God created evil. If the first premise and the second premise are true, the conclusion has to be true. It really bothered him that God could create evil, and he seemed to really struggle with this. But upon further examining his argument, he realized there was a really big error in his second premise. Evil is not a thing. Evil is a lack or a deficiency of a good thing. So, for example, cancer could not exist if it weren't for healthy cells. Evil is like a cut finger. If you take the cut out of your finger, you have a better finger. But if you take the finger out of your cut, you have nothing. It can't exist without healthy skin. There can be no objective evil unless there's objective good, and there can be no objective good unless God exists. So if evil is real, and we all know that it is, then it follows that God exists. Now, if you want to dive deeper into this, a really good read is Stealing from God by Frank Turek and Why God Allows Evil by Clay Jones. Both of those books will be in the resources link in the description, but I want to extend some empathy about this. This is a tough thing to see and deal with, no matter if it's animals, people, or any other evil out there. I remember having moments of extreme anguish when it came to the problem of evil. And I also have this odd survivor's guilt sometimes too, like when I hear of terrible things happening, like the recent earthquake in Syria and Turkey. I struggle with things like that. And the thing is, though, is that nobody is exempt from pain and suffering. We all experience this. I mean, I really wrestled with this, and I found that in the New Age thought, this was an appeal for me. I found some relief for this, but the relief came at the cost of ignoring it. In my search for answers for this, it really was the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God who rose Jesus from the dead, that we truly can deal with evil in a just and perfect way. And I also want to say that this is why we as Christians must be the hands and feet of Jesus by caring for others, including animals. Let me just shine a light on you people out there for a second, you Christians out there who practice the James principle, right? And you put action to your faith by actually doing something about the evil in the world, by caring for others, being the light of the world. Christians are compelled to practice charity because this is a fruit of the Spirit, to love and help others. We still need to take care of others and God's creation. We're mandated to. So though it might be tough to see these poor animals suffer, I know there are people out there that are trying to make it right the best way they can. And eventually God will be the completion of this loving act by making all things right and good again. And that gives me hope.